Okay, I want to do a brief tutorial on white balance in Lightroom. And for this I'm going to be using some images where I have captured or photographed a color passport, which is what this item looks like, and here again. And I carry it around with me all the time, and it's a very handy device. Allows you to use it for white balance after the fact. If you take a picture with a color passport in the same lighting condition, then you can white balance any other images that you have shot under the same lighting condition. So I'm going to start with this image here. This was photographed in a hallway, and the white balance in the image was not set correctly. However, for the purposes of the tutorial, it'll do well. So if I zoom in on this, what isn't really apparent is that these neutral density patches right here are colored, so the overall color is yellow. What we would expect to be black is actually like a dark brown, which is really kind of a black tinged with yellow. So coming to the Develop module in Lightroom, in the basic panel there is the this eyedropper, which is used for white balance. So I'm going to show this in a comparison, so a before and an after. And if I click on the eyedropper, and the idea with white balance is to use the eyedropper on a color which is neutral. In this case it's gray. So if it neutralizes and gets rid of the color cast, what you should also notice is that in the target here, there's percentages of color that are in the bottom of this patch. There's 40.7% red, 30.2% green, and 19.9% blue. The colors, the important colors in photography and for digital photography, are red, green, and blue, cyan, magenta, and yellow. And cyan, magenta, and yellow are the complements to red, green, and blue. So the complement of red is cyan, the complement of green is magenta, the complement of blue is yellow. So if we have a reduced amount of blue, then that means that we have more yellow. So the idea behind neutralizing the colors is that if you know that this patch should, a neutral color would have those numbers as being the same, and so that's what neutralization does. It basically brings everything into alignment. So if I click the eyedropper here, you'll see that now the colors have been neutralized. They look a lot more normal. And if I bring the eyedropper over here and just simply float it over the neutral gray, you can see now that we have 32.1, 32.6, and 32 as a percent, which means that all those colors have been neutralized. They should be the same value so that there is no color cast. If any one of those colors is stronger than another, then there is a color cast. So I'll just put this back and zoom back out again, and you can see now the difference between the before and after as a result of doing the white balance. So if I move over here, I'm going to take away this comparison. So there's my after. I'm going to pick this file right here, and as a way of comparison, I'll pick these two so we can see both of those files. We'll see these here. Let me go back here, turn this one off. So I'm going to apply the white balance. Let me turn this off, take it back to the single image. Apply white balance. Now this will be more subtle because the white balance in the camera was set. One of the advantages of working with a raw file is that even though you set the white balance in the camera, it is really just an instruction to the raw processor in the camera when it is generating a JPEG file. The raw data just simply stays as raw data, and you can adjust after the fact, because the the white balance really isn't baked in as it is with the JPEG file. So if you notice this, the target here, we have 38.2, 37.3, and 35.8, and so they're pretty close. So if I click this, we're not going to see much of a shift. A little bit. So if I go before and then bring it back. So if I look at a before and after there, it's a little bit different, but not too much, and but still it's enough that you know, you should consider doing it. In this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select an image right beside it, and then what I want to do here is I'm going to turn off this, and I'm going to synchronize the settings. And in this instance, I'm going to check none, but I am going to turn on the white balance right here. And what's going to happen is that the first file, which was the file that I white balanced using the Color Passport, those settings are now going to be transferred and applied to the second file. So I'm going to synchronize those. Turn this off. I'll bring this back to this file here. And if I reset it, it'll set it back to prior to the white balance being applied. And there's a bit of a, you can see that's a before, and that's before, and that's after, and there's a little bit of a shift there. You'll also notice there's a bit of distortion that's being corrected, and that happens down here in the camera calibration, sorry, the lens corrections. So the lens is I do this normally when I bring my files in. So in the basic module under lens corrections, I apply a remove chromatic aberration. I enable the profile corrections for the lens that was used to take the picture. The EXIF data or the metadata that's attached to the file will identify the camera, the lens, and then apply a profile. And that's what's happening here. If I turn this off, you can see how it corrects for vignetting. Because there's more glass at the edge of the lens, that's why it actually gets a little bit darker, and there's always a bit of distortion. So if you enable this, then it removes that vignetting, basically makes it even all the way across, and then it's going to just basically get rid of any distortion as well. The remove chromatic aberration, I'll zoom in on this and show this as well. Might as well while I'm here. Chromatic aberration, I'll zoom in on the file here a little bit further. Chromatic aberration is where, especially in a high contrast situation like this one, you're going to get color fringing, especially where there's high contrast. So you'll notice that on this side of the image it's a little bit red, and on the other side a little bit blue or cyan. If I enable the remove chromatic aberration, it's going to reduce it. It will not eliminate it, but it will reduce it. And you can see there's before and there's after, and this is a good practice to have to make sure you're getting the best quality off of your images. So this is a basically a 1-to-1 or 100% magnification. There's with chromatic aberration not being corrected, and that's with it being corrected, and it's pretty subtle at this point, but when you zoom in you'll see it. But it does make a difference in terms of your images, especially when you start doing some editing. So as you can see here, I have this file right here. I'll zoom out on this one. This is again, this was all shot on this location right here, here. So typically what I will do is I will go to a location. I'm going to command click these files here. They were all shot in the same, and you only need to take the picture once. So I'm going to come up here and choose the white balance and do a white balance. Usually on one of these two patches is usually pretty good, and you can see that that made a correction. So if we look at before and after, so that's the before, that's after. And what I will do now is I will apply that to all those other files. So I'm going to synchronize this using the white balance and synchronize them. And if I go here to this one, and you can see before and after. Now sometimes, depending upon how you feel, you might prefer this one. It's a little bit warmer. But can move here again, you'll see before and after. Before and after. But the right hand side is technically more accurate, and in terms of the overall color, the lighting in this environment was being colored by the wood, by the, I guess by the sand, and I was obviously giving it a yellow cast. So our eyes compensate for it, but the cameras can't. So that's why white balance is important. And as I say, I take this around with me all the time. Here's another example. Indoors, basically a product kind of assignment. So I'm going to white balance this one, and then I will apply it here, synchronize the file. So it synchronized this one, and I will do a before and after. And once again, you can see that there is an overall yellow cast here that is being corrected. And this is pretty typical. This is the kind of thing that on assignment that you would typically use a color passport for. Here's another example. This one will be a little bit tricky, because what's going to happen here is that the red of the bowl is actually also going to be contaminating the color patches. So if I take this and white balance here on the neutral color, it's actually a little bit too blue. I mean, it is neutralized, but it's a little bit, it's going to be a little bit cool because of the red that's being influenced, or the red is influencing the overall color balance here. Not too bad, but if I take the white balance here and go back to the chair, which is, white is a neutral color as well, if I click on this, it'll bring it back a little bit, but it's just you have to apply a certain amount of subjectivity to this whole thing. Anyway, as you can see, there we are. Especially useful with art. So if you're photographing art, it's really important to have accurate color. Again, take the white balance, just apply it, and then I'm going to synchronize that white balance to the next image, and we'll move this one over, and we'll check it out a before and after. So as you can see, it makes quite a bit of a difference in terms of the overall color, and that's enough that if you're printing and if you're looking for really accurate color, you really should be using a color passport all the time. Anyway, I hope that's been helpful, and see you next time.